Good evening, everyone. My name is Paul Young, and I'm doing a quick video on export analysis, but it's more looking at trade in general. And I've got Canada and the United States listed there, but I'll actually talk about China, and I'll talk about the overall flow of how goods and services flow. So my agenda will be trade. I'll look at the trade by year. I'll look at exports. I'll look at U.S. exports. I'll look at China. This chart shows you, okay, and it's very critical to understand. The Canadian economy is about $2 trillion. But look what drives a bulk of that, about 2/3 of that, consumer spending. So that's household budgets. So that's everything from food and clothing, that's shelter, transportation. That's what it's driving that. Food. You have to live. So that's what's driving that. So that being said, if you put pressure on household budgets, that's going to impact the GDP. So let's stop there. We need to really understand, so any type of government policy that brings in new taxation, which reduces the people's after-tax income in terms of what they're going to be paid, guess what's going to happen? They're going to have less money to spend on goods and services. That's then going to drive how GDP responds and growth. Let's talk about trade. Exports have gone from where they were at a base value in 2010 of $404 billion to over almost $524 billion. That's significant. That growth rate is very good. It's very solid. We need those exports. They create jobs. For each $1 billion of export, it creates 5,500 jobs. They pay well. So why isn't Justin Trudeau? Why isn't Kathleen Wynne? Why aren't the premiers talking about this infrastructure spending and talking about how we need to put some emphasis of getting goods to market? They talk a lot of rhetoric about pipelines. They talk a lot of rhetoric about port development. But what they haven't brought to the table is solutions. People want solutions. People in Alberta need to feel that there's a government in Ottawa that cares. People in Ontario are concerned in the automotive sector. People are concerned in the forestry sector. I can go to the list of sectors they're facing considerable amount of pressure both global and domestically. And yet we hear nothing from the governments to talk about how they're going to move things forward. Let's look about the deficit. In order to close down a trade deficit, you have to increase exports or reduce imports. All you hear is rhetoric. Rhetoric, it's time for solutions. If we're going to expand exports, then we need to expand those areas from trade deals to investment deals. How do we do that? Well, look at this chart. 40% of all exports come from 3 buckets: oil, automotive, transportation, machinery, equipment. That's 40% of all exports. So without pipelines, we can't get oil in the market. If we don't have a clear understanding of automotive strategy in terms of keeping hydro costs down, keeping the carbon taxation rules changed, we're going to have a huge issue of keeping automotive production in this country. That's going to impact exports. Same with machines. They all are carbon based. So why isn't Justin Trudeau talking about this 40% of exports that's driving taxation dollars? Because he's too busy going around doing selfies. He's not really talking about solutions. He's talking about blaming the previous government for all the mistakes. Yet 60% of exports come from other areas. We're seeing a big boom in wood area. Why? Because forestry is growing because of the lumber area. We're seeing that. That's considerable. That's important area to focus on. Let's talk about the U.S. U.S. again, if you look at their area, is in the top 4. So it's aerospace, vehicles, electronic equipment, machines. Okay? Oil is very low on there because typically they have restrictions about how oil is exported out. That's changed now. Obama's lifted those restrictions. They're allowed to export now. Yet Canada cannot compete right now because we don't have the capacity to do that. Yet where's Justin Trudeau on this to support local business in Alberta, Newfoundland, Saskatchewan? Nowhere to be found. He's doing a lot of selfies. He loves showing his selfies, but no solutions. Look at China. Everybody complains about China. Okay? China, you want cheap goods? You want cheap TVs? You want cheap cell phones? You want cheap clothes? Well, you want those cheap. Guess where they come from? China. That's what you're seeing with this chart. Now, the reason why I want you to really think clearly on these discussions here, the global economy itself is growing very slowly. The last thing you do with any sort of economy is throw a lot of new taxations and a complete reverse in strategy in terms of trade deals, investment deals, policies at a provincial level, whether they're hydro, carbon taxation, payroll taxes, because businesses cannot take multiple changes of policy. They want a government that's going to work with them to help them grow their business. Okay, yes, we need regulations, we need to improve that standard, but we also need to have a clear understanding how we move a process forward without creating a lot of silos. The Liberal government's been less than coherent in terms of their strategy, in terms of how they are going to close those gaps down. Those gaps are important because they will drive how foreign direct investment comes into this country. Foreign direct investment will lead to investment in terms of opportunities to expand the oil sector, food processing, other sectors of the economy, because Canada is only so big, it needs foreign capital. Foreign capital is critical because it impacts what we call is the balance of payments, and yet there's no discussion on that. So it's very critical when you're having discussions as you get out to your local MPs, your local MPPs, even your municipal politicians, to start driving policy change. Okay, if we're going to have money in the infrastructure, a portion of that's got to go in to help capacity of exports. If we're going to look at other aspects of taxation policy, it has to drive job growth. So that's why I'm encouraging all you to make these videos available or have these discussions with different people to put pressure on politicians to deliver solutions, not rhetoric. Thank you.